My mom skipped my graduation to watch my stepbrother's soccer game. 15 years later, I skipped her retirement party to have lunch with my stepsister-in-law and told her every ugly truth. I'm still haunted by the way her voice sounded on the phone that day, breezy, almost casual, as if she wasn't about to permanently burn a hole through one of the most important days of my life. I was 22, standing in my cap and gown outside the auditorium, clutching my diploma folder with sweaty hands. My mom had promised for weeks she'd be there. Kept saying, "Of course, honey, I wouldn't miss it for the world." But an hour before the ceremony, she called. "Sweetie, I'm so sorry, but Dylan's soccer team made the state finals and the games today. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing for him." My stepbrother was 15. He had at least 3 more years of high school soccer ahead of him. I had one college graduation, one, and she was trading it for a folding chair on the sidelines and a foam finger. I don't even remember what I said. I think I just went quiet. She filled the silence with more excuses. Traffic, timing, your stepdad's already in the car, until finally I muttered, "Okay," and hung up before my voice cracked. When I walked across that stage, my dad was there, my roommate was there, even my old art professor came, but the seat I'd saved in my head for my mom stayed empty. Afterward, when everyone else was wrapped in hugs, I smiled for pictures like nothing was wrong. I didn't want to hand her absence to anyone else to hold. That night, she texted me a blurry photo of Dylan holding a plastic trophy. "They won! So proud of both my kids today." I stared at it for so long my phone went dark in my hand. The next week, she mailed me a card. "Congrats, grad." Inside was a $25 Starbucks gift card and a scribbled note about how sorry she was. How Dylan just needed her there more. I stuck it in a drawer and never spent it. I told myself for years it didn't matter, that I was being dramatic, that people miss things sometimes. But the truth is it lodged somewhere deep, a splinter I couldn't dig out. It wasn't just the soccer game. It was the pattern. Birthdays forgotten if Dylan had a tournament. My art shows skipped because my stepsister had a piano recital. Every milestone filtered through the question of whether someone else in the new family had something more important going on. I stopped asking her to come to things. Stopped sharing dates and times. She didn't notice. Or maybe she noticed and was relieved. 15 years is a long time to let something fester. You learn to smile through it, to make jokes about being the independent one, to pretend you're fine when she gushes about someone else's achievement right over yours. But under all that, you're keeping score, even if you don't admit it to yourself. And when the right opportunity finally comes to balance that score, you take it. Her retirement announcement came in the form of one of those mass Facebook posts. Big balloon emojis, a photo of her holding a sheet cake at the office, and a caption about closing one chapter, opening another. She tagged Dylan, my stepsister, my stepdad, not me. I wouldn't even have known about the actual party if my cousin hadn't texted me. "You going to your mom's thing next month?" At first, my gut reaction was no. Just no. Why would I? She hadn't shown up for me in 15 years. Why should I show up now to clap and smile like her neglect didn't exist? But then, a darker, sharper thought settled in. There were going to be speeches, toasts, family gathered from out of town, people telling her what an amazing mother and role model she'd been, and all of it built on a version of her that wasn't real, not to me. That's when the idea formed. Not to confront her directly in front of a crowd, that would have been too obvious. Too easy for her to twist into me making a scene. No, I wanted something quieter, but sharper, a truth she couldn't spin. That's when I thought of Claire, Dylan's wife. She'd always been polite at holidays, warm even, but we'd never had much one-on-one time. Still, I'd noticed the way her eyes sometimes flickered at my mom's comments, the way she'd go quiet when mom would bulldoze a conversation to talk about Dylan's latest soccer coaching gig. So I sent her a message. "Hey, this is random, but you want to grab lunch the day of mom's retirement party?" She replied almost instantly, "Sure, but aren't you going?" I told her I had a better idea. In the weeks leading up to the party, I kept my distance from family group texts, ignored my mom's generic "hope you can make it" message, and quietly blocked her from seeing my location on social media. I didn't want her knowing where I was until it was too late to pull me in. The morning of the party, I woke up with the same knot in my stomach I'd had the day of my graduation, except this time, I was the one skipping. Except this time, I wasn't apologizing. I wore a dress I knew she liked, purely out of spite. I wanted her to imagine me somewhere respectable, not sulking at home. Claire and I met at this little cafe downtown, all sunlight and clinking coffee cups. She seemed curious, maybe a little nervous. Over lattes, I started talking. At first, just little stories. Missed birthdays. The time mom forgot to tell me Dylan's wedding rehearsal had been rescheduled, so I showed up late and embarrassed. Claire listened quietly, her brow furrowing. Then I told her about the graduation, word for word, how my mom had sounded on the phone, how she'd chosen a soccer game over me. I didn't sugarcoat a thing. Claire sat back, her jaw tight. "You know," she said slowly, "some things about her have always bugged me. But I didn't know it was that bad. I smiled into my coffee. Oh, she was starting to see it, and that was exactly the point. Once the first crack formed, I didn't have to push hard for the rest of it to split wide open. Claire kept asking questions. Small at first, like she was just trying to be polite. But then they started to get sharper, more specific. So she never apologized? Like, genuinely? Or did she ever do the same thing to you at Christmas that one year? That last one stopped me. What Christmas? She told me about a year early in her and Dylan's marriage when they'd driven 2 hours to my mom's house for the holiday. They showed up to a locked door and a note taped to it. Went to surprise Dylan's old coach for the holidays. See you next year. No warning, no call, no text. Claire said Dylan laughed it off, but she'd been furious. Dragged her luggage back to the car in the snow, vowing never to let my mom plan Christmas again. I'd never heard that story, and that's when I realized something. My mom's neglect wasn't just reserved for me. She'd been running this pattern for years, favoring who she felt like favoring in the moment, then expecting the rest of us to just accept it. It gave me a strange sense of vindication. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. This was who she was. We lingered over lunch for hours. I told Claire about the time she'd promised to come to my art show, and then posted Facebook photos from a wine tasting with her work friends instead. About how, when I was 14, she'd left me at home on my birthday because Dylan had a must-win soccer match 3 towns over. How I'd eaten grocery store cake alone while she texted me updates on the score. Claire didn't interrupt much, but she didn't look away either. Every new story seemed to settle into her like a weight, the puzzle pieces falling into place. By the time the plates were cleared, she was leaning forward over her coffee, speaking low. You know, she's been getting under my skin for a while now. The way she talks to me sometimes like I'm an outsider in my own marriage. Dylan doesn't see it, or pretends not to. But if he knew some of this, she trailed off, eyes flicking toward me. I didn't say do it. I didn't have to. The idea was already there, curling around both of us like smoke. When we finally stood to leave, I checked my phone. The retirement party was still going. There were photos on Facebook. My mom in a glittery sash, holding a wine glass, surrounded by people telling her how loved she was. I felt nothing. No guilt, no FOMO. Just a clean, satisfying sense of absence. I wasn't there, and she didn't get to have me there. But as I walked to my car, I realized something else. This wasn't done. Not yet. I'd given Claire the truth, but I still had one more move to make. One that would cut through my mom's curated little image in a way she couldn't control. The next morning, my phone lit up before I was even fully awake. First, a text from my cousin. Your mom's looking for you. Big time. Then another from an old neighbor. Everything okay? She was kind of upset last night. I scrolled down and found the public Facebook post. A smiling photo of her from the party, sash still glittering, makeup a little smudged, with the caption, "Last night was perfect, except for the empty seat where my daughter should have been." Some people don't understand family until it's too late. The comments were full of sympathy, people consoling her, people assuming I'd flaked for selfish reasons. And the worst part? She was loving it, replying with little broken heart emojis, leaning into the narrative of herself as the wounded, abandoned mother. I should have ignored it. That's what I'd always done. But this time, I couldn't. I'd kept quiet for 15 years, swallowing my side of the story to keep the peace. All it had done was give her more room to rewrite the truth. I drafted a reply 3 times before settling on something simple. I'm glad you had a good night, Mom. It reminded me a lot of my college graduation. Another important day I guess you couldn't make it to. I hit post and left it there. Within an hour, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Half the comments went dead silent. The other half? People asking what I meant. Some already putting the pieces together. Wasn't that the year Dylan's team won state? And then Claire texted me. I think your mom's melting down. She called Dylan. He's pacing the kitchen. Want me to come over? I didn't answer right away. I was already picturing it. Her, phone in hand, sputtering to my stepdad about how dare I air private family matters in public. And for the first time, instead of shrinking from the image, I leaned into it. 2 hours later, she called me. I let it go to voicemail. Her message started in that tight, fake sweet tone she used when she thought she could still win you over. Hi, sweetie. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Then it cracked. The volume went up. She accused me of trying to humiliate her, of turning her moment into a vendetta. She even slipped in the classic, after everything I've done for you, everything she'd done for me, like missing my milestones, like turning me into the independent one, because she couldn't be bothered to show up. I saved the voicemail. Not because I needed proof, but because it was the first time in years she'd shown the real her without the sugarcoating. That's when I knew. My next move wasn't going to be online. It was going to be face-to-face in a place she wouldn't expect, with someone she couldn't perform for. The party had been her stage. I was about to take it away from her entirely. Update 1. I didn't expect my little Facebook comment to blow up the way it did. When I posted it, I figured it'd make a few people pause. Maybe make her squirm. But apparently, it landed like a grenade in the middle of her perfect little family-first image. I woke up this morning to 3 unread DMs from people I barely talk to anymore. Old neighbors, distant relatives, asking if everything was okay between me and mom. One even said, I always wondered why you weren't in more of the family pictures. And then there were the petty ones. Someone I haven't spoken to since high school wrote, wow, airing dirty laundry much? Sure, Jan. I'm not the one who built a sympathy post on a lie. Claire called me later and I swear she was giddy. Apparently, after my comment, Mom cornered her in the kitchen during the after party and tried to get her to talk sense into me. Claire told her she had no idea what Mom was talking about, which in Claire speak means, I'm not doing your dirty work. She said Mom's face went red and she actually slammed a cabinet door so hard a wine glass fell out and shattered. The best part? Dylan texted me. Not to ask how I was doing, not to check in, but to tell me I'd embarrassed their mom and that I needed to apologize. I sent back one line. Did she tell you whose game she was at during my college graduation? No reply. Just 3 dots that disappeared. Some of you in the comments of my last post suggested I go nuclear. Post the whole graduation story publicly. Name names. Tag the people who were actually there. Tempting. But I think there's a sweeter way to do this. Something that sticks in her head longer than a post she can delete. I'm not going to her. I'm going to make her come to me. And when she does, it won't be to a room full of her coworkers or Facebook friends. It'll be somewhere she has no audience, no script, and no quick exit. She wanted everyone to think she's the victim? Fine. I'll show her what it feels like when the lights turn off and there's no one left to clap. And yeah, before anyone asks, Claire's in. It only took 2 days for her to bite. I was at work, half listening to a Zoom meeting, when my phone lit up with her name. This time, I answered. She didn't even say hello. Just launched straight in. We need to talk. In person. Her voice had that clipped, tight edge like she was holding herself together by the thinnest thread. I agreed without hesitation. Suggested a little mid-range restaurant downtown, the kind of place with just enough background noise to make it impossible for her to stage a scene without drawing stares. She didn't argue. When I showed up, she was already there, sitting ramrod straight in a booth by the window. She looked rattled, not just angry, off balance, like she'd been replaying my comment over and over and couldn't stop picking at it. I slid into the seat across from her and let the silence hang. She broke first. I can't believe you would humiliate me like that, she said. On Facebook, no less. I leaned back. You mean the way you humiliated me by not showing up for my graduation? She flinched, but recovered fast. That was different. Dylan was a teenager with another game the next week, I cut in. I had one college graduation. You made your choice. That's when her composure cracked. She raised her voice. Not a full-on scream, but enough to make the table beside us glance over. You think you're so much better than everyone, holding on to grudges from decades ago. You have no idea what it's like to be a mother. I didn't even blink. No, but I know what it's like to be your daughter. She went still. For a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd soften. But instead, she switched tactics. Her eyes went wet. Her voice trembled. I did my best. You've never appreciated me. And now you're turning Claire against me too? Bingo. I kept my tone casual. I didn't turn Claire against you. I just told her the truth. If that's enough to change how she sees you, maybe that's something you need to think about. Her hand shot out, grabbing the edge of the table so hard her knuckles whitened. For a split second, I thought she might actually flip it. Instead, she stood abruptly, knocking her water glass over in the process. It rolled toward me, spilling cold across my lap. The people at the next table were definitely watching now. Her eyes darted to them, then back to me, and I saw the panic, realizing she'd just given them a glimpse of the real her. She muttered something about being done with this, and stormed out, leaving me dripping and oddly exhilarated. Because that wasn't the end game. The end game was still coming, and it would be delivered through someone much closer to her than me. Claire didn't even wait a full day before texting me. She came over last night. You're in her head. Apparently, after our little restaurant showdown, my mom had driven straight to Dylan and Claire's house under the guise of needing to talk. What she really needed was an audience that would validate her. She launched into a full-blown monologue about my disrespect, complete with exaggerated hand gestures and that tremble in her voice she uses when she's playing the martyr. Claire said she just sat there, letting her dig the hole deeper. Dylan kept nodding along, throwing in the occasional, yeah, she shouldn't have posted that, clearly trying to steer things toward a group trashing of me. Then Claire struck. She started with the graduation story, word for word, exactly how I'd told her. Mom immediately tried to cut in, to rewrite it into something about bad timing, and needing to be there for Dylan in a crucial moment. But Claire didn't stop. She moved on to the birthday I spent alone, the art show she skipped for a wine tasting, the forgotten wedding rehearsal. Dylan went quiet. And when Claire added her own Christmas story, locked out of the house in the snow, dragging luggage back to the car, Dylan's face apparently went pale. Mom, did that really happen? He asked. Mom deflected, of course. She switched to offense, accusing me of poisoning Claire against her, of twisting innocent mistakes into a vendetta. Claire just looked at her and said, "You don't have to twist the truth when it's already bent." That was when the tears started. Not soft, remorseful ones. Ugly, loud ones. She accused Claire of being ungrateful, Dylan of taking sides, and then, in true form, she knocked over a framed photo on the console table as she stormed out. Claire told me the glass shattered all over the floor, but Mom didn't even look back. I could picture it so vividly, the way she leaves messes behind and expects someone else to clean them up. The thing is, Claire wasn't just telling those stories for me. She was planning them in Dylan's head, where they'd rattle around and keep him up at night. My mom thrives on loyalty, on being the center of her little orbit. If Dylan starts questioning her version of history, that's a crack she can't plaster over. Claire ended her text with, "You know she's going to retaliate, right?" Good. I wanted her to. Because the more she flailed, the more the mask slipped. And I already knew exactly how to make sure everyone saw her without it. Update 2. I knew the retaliation was coming, but I didn't expect it to be so sloppy. 2 nights ago, I got this weird burst of notifications. 3 missed calls from my aunt, then a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Shame on you for what you're doing to your mother." Turns out, Mom had started making the rounds, calling relatives, telling them I'd been harassing her, stirring up trouble in the family, even attacking her marriage to my stepdad. The problem? She couldn't keep her story straight. One cousin said she claimed I'd cursed her out at the retirement party, which I wasn't even at. Another was told I'd been sending her nasty letters for years. A third said she'd cried on the phone, saying I'd turned Claire against the whole family. By the time the third or fourth version reached me, it was almost funny. She was unraveling, fast, and the more people compared notes, the more obvious it became that this wasn't about me being cruel, it was about me breaking her narrative. And here's the kicker. Claire called me last night to say Dylan's starting to ask questions when Mom calls. Like, real questions. He even asked her point blank if she'd really skipped my graduation for a soccer game. Claire didn't answer for me, just told him, "You should ask her." I could practically hear the dominoes tipping over in his brain. Some of you in the comments after my first update said, "Revenge is best when it's quiet and slow." I think we've reached that point. I don't need to shout the truth anymore. It's spreading on its own, carried in whispers Mom can't control. But I'll admit, I'm tempted to push it just a little further. There's one last thing I've been holding back. Something so specific and undeniable that if I drop it in the right place, it'll detonate her whole "I did my best" act for good. And I know exactly who to tell it to. It was a Thursday evening when I decided to light the match. I called my stepdad. We've never been close. He's always been more of a background presence, orbiting my mom and nodding along to whatever version of reality she presented. But he's also practical, logical, and if anyone could poke a hole in her story from the inside, it was him. He answered on the second ring, sounding surprised to hear from me. I kept my tone casual, almost friendly, and asked if he had a minute. Then I told him the story I'd never told anyone outside of a couple close friends, the one I'd been holding on to for 15 years like a live wire. It was from the year after my graduation. I'd been applying for grad school, and one of my top choices offered interviews to a select group of candidates. Mine was scheduled on a Saturday morning. Mom had promised to drive me, told me she'd take me out for lunch after to celebrate. The night before, she called to say she couldn't make it because Dylan's team had a last-minute scrimmage. I took the bus. In the rain. Showed up drenched and shivering, with my notes smeared and my hair plastered to my face. I still did the interview, but I knew I looked like hell. I didn't get in. I didn't cry telling him. I didn't even raise my voice. I just laid it out, detail by detail, and let the silence afterward do the work. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "She never told me that." "Yeah," I said. "She doesn't tell a lot of things." We talked for maybe 10 more minutes. Polite, measured, but I could tell I'd planted something in him. You can't unhear a story like that when you think you know someone inside and out. The next day, Claire texted, "Your stepdad just asked her about your grad school interview." She lost it. Apparently, she went full volume, denying, deflecting, then pivoting to accusations about me trying to turn the whole family against her. At one point, she slammed her phone down so hard it cracked the corner of the screen. But here's the part that made me smile. She didn't realize Dylan was in the next room. He heard all of it, and later, he asked Claire if she thought my story was true. She told him yes, without hesitation. That's when I knew I'd won. Not because she was angry, but because now there were 3 people in her closest circle who'd heard the truth from my mouth or Claire's. 3 people who'd seen her mask slip. The woman who skipped my graduation for a soccer game was finally being seen for exactly who she was. And for the first time in 15 years, I didn't feel like the forgotten daughter. I felt like the one holding the mirror. The real kicker came a week later, completely by accident. I was having coffee with a friend downtown when my phone buzzed with a screenshot from Claire. It was a group text. My mom, Dylan, my stepdad, and Claire. Mom had meant to send the message to just Dylan, but hit reply all. It read, "She's trying to make me look bad, but I'll just keep telling everyone she's unstable. No one will believe her if we all stick together." 2 minutes later, another message from her. "Oops, wrong chat." Claire said my stepdad didn't reply. Dylan just sent back, "Seriously?" And then, nothing. No frantic follow-up, no damage control. Just the silence of people starting to see the pattern. That was the moment I stopped needing revenge. Not because she didn't deserve more. Oh, she did. But because she'd done the work for me. She'd proven every single thing I'd been saying without me lifting a finger. I didn't respond to the group text. I didn't call her out. I didn't need to. The fracture lines were already there, running deep, and every word she said now would only widen them. 2 days later, Claire invited me over for dinner. Dylan was there, quieter than usual, but he actually asked me about my work, my life. Not once did he mention making amends with Mom. My stepdad kept the conversation neutral, but when I left, he walked me to my car and said, "I'm sorry about the interview and the graduation." It was the first apology I'd ever gotten from anyone in that house. Driving home, I realized something. The 15 years I'd spent waiting for my mom to show up for me were gone. That version of the relationship was never going to exist. But I wasn't empty-handed. I had the truth. And now other people had it too. She could keep spinning her stories, playing the victim, posting whatever curated nonsense she wanted online. But every time she did, there'd be someone in the room, Dylan, Claire, my stepdad, who'd know exactly what was missing between the lines. And that's the kind of silence that's louder than any public call-out. So no, I didn't go to her retirement party. I didn't raise a toast. I didn't clap for a woman who'd never once shown up to clap for me. Instead, I handed the truth to the people closest to her and let it do what it does best. Sit there, unshakable, in the quiet moments when no one else is watching. 15 years ago, she left me standing alone in a cap and gown. This year, I left her standing alone in her own story.